Have you ever thought that the Bible, beyond being a spiritual guide, also contains deep secrets about prosperity? And I'm not just talking about material wealth, but true prosperity, which includes peace, purpose, and a life aligned with God's plans. In this video, we're going to dive into knowledge that few reveal, exploring financial principles for God's chosen, directly from the Scriptures. Get ready to discover how divine words can transform your perspective on wealth and teach you to use resources with wisdom and purpose. Imagine living without the fear of scarcity, trusting that God is your provider in every detail. By applying these secrets, you'll see that prosperity isn't luck or chance, but the result of a life committed to eternal values. Want to know how this is possible? Watch this video until the end and let yourself be surprised by the transformative power of the Scriptures. The Bible presents a deep and transformative view of wealth that goes beyond mere accumulation of possessions. From the start, we see God as the source of all provision, and this recognition invites us to develop an abundance mindset. Instead of fearing lack, God's chosen are called to believe there is enough provision for every need. This begins with mindset because what we believe about our resources directly impacts our actions and decisions. For those seeking true prosperity, the change begins within. As the Bible says in Proverbs, "As he thinks in his heart, so is he." This passage shows that financial success isn't just about how much you earn, but about what you believe is possible with what you have. Those who see themselves as limited and stuck in scarcity often act with fear and hesitation. On the other hand, those aligned with the idea of abundance move with confidence, knowing that God is the source of everything. Living with an abundance mindset also means recognizing the role that faith plays in our prosperity. For God's chosen, this faith shapes every step, guiding them to use their gifts and opportunities with wisdom. A practical example: instead of seeing a difficult situation as a final obstacle, someone who adopts this mindset sees an opportunity to grow and overcome, remembering that every challenge is a chance to develop greater trust in God. Thus, the journey to abundance begins in the mind and heart, preparing the way for the next step. God's chosen are invited to live in a state of complete trust in divine provision. The Bible reminds us, time and again, that God is the one who meets all our needs, with no limits to his power. This principle of trust translates into incredible freedom. By depending on God as our provider, we let go of the constant worry about scarcity and begin to live in peace, knowing that he knows each of our needs and is willing to fulfill them. To strengthen this trust, we need to look at the example of men and women in the Bible who entrusted their lives to God. Take, for instance, the story of Abraham, who, by trusting in God's promises, was rewarded with a large and prosperous lineage. This unshakable faith in divine care led Abraham to experience what it is like to live without fear of the future. Thus, we too are called to walk a path of trust, knowing that the Lord never fails in his provision. Living with this perspective transforms the way we view every resource we have. Instead of feeling the need to accumulate on our own, we understand that everything we possess comes from God, and that he will always open new doors. For God's chosen, this trust is an essential pillar, allowing us to walk safely, waiting in faith for the opportunities he will place before us. And this trust prepares us for the next step, where generosity becomes a natural extension of this understanding. For God's chosen, generosity is not just a spiritual practice, but a channel of blessings. The Bible teaches us that giving opens doors for receiving even more, transforming the idea of prosperity into something that surpasses the material. When we give, whether through tithing or acts of generosity, we activate a biblical promise of multiplied return. This act is a reminder that God is the source of all wealth, and by giving, we are reaffirming our faith in his limitless provision. This principle is evident in Malachi 3:10, where God challenges the faithful to test him in tithing, promising to open the windows of heaven and pour out abundant blessings. Generosity, therefore, should not be seen as a loss, but as an investment in a cycle of blessings. Those who adopt this mindset don't live in fear of losing what they give, but with the expectation that every act of kindness will return multiplied, according to divine promise. The practice of generosity also removes the heart from material attachment and aligns it with God's purposes. By dedicating part of what we receive to bless others, we develop a more open heart, ready to welcome new blessings. For God's chosen, generosity is not a burden, but a privilege, one that elevates us to a higher level of living, preparing us to understand how to manage and multiply what God places in our hands. The Bible's teachings on responsibility and resource management are clear. Everything we possess is a gift from God, and our task is to use it wisely. For God's chosen, the practice of stewardship begins with a deep sense of responsibility, recognizing that what we have is not solely ours but has been entrusted to us. The biblical principle of good stewardship challenges us to use our resources with discernment, avoiding waste, and maximizing the potential of each blessing. This responsible management is illustrated in the book of Proverbs, which recommends constant attention to what we have, like a shepherd watching over his flock. This vigilance keeps us prepared for the unexpected and ready for opportunities. For God's chosen, keeping control over resources is not about obsession, but about obedience to divine wisdom. Planning, saving, and investing carefully are practical steps that put us in a position of security and prepare us for the next phases in the journey of prosperity. Wise stewardship, then, is not just a financial practice, but an act of worship. When we take good care of what God has given us, we show gratitude and respect for His blessings. This care creates room for multiplication and prepares us for greater responsibilities. And that's why, in the biblical view, what we have reflects how we handle our gifts and talents. Essential preparation for the principle of multiplication, which we'll explore next. The parable of the talents reveals one of the Bible's most powerful teachings on using gifts and resources. God values those who multiply what they receive. In this parable, Jesus speaks of a master who entrusts different amounts of talents to 3 servants. While 2 invest and multiply what they are given, the third chooses to bury his talent. The master praises those who multiplied and rebukes the one who did nothing. This story teaches that prosperity is born from the effort to develop what God has placed in our hands. For God's chosen, the principle of multiplication goes beyond finances. It applies to all areas of life. To multiply means to grow, to develop, whether in skills, relationships, or faith. Those who embrace this mindset do not limit themselves to storing, but seek to improve and expand, knowing that each effort is a way of honoring the Creator. Thus, the secret is not in accumulating, but in being proactive and creating fruit from what was received. This principle is also an invitation to action. To multiply, courage, initiative, and vision are necessary. A practical example is investing time and energy in improving a skill that can benefit the community. By multiplying, God's chosen transform their lives and positively influence the world around them while preparing to understand the role of money as a tool, not as an end in itself. The Bible makes it clear that money is an instrument, a tool that can be used for both good and evil. For God's chosen, wealth should be viewed as a means to achieve greater purposes, never as the ultimate goal. By warning about the danger of loving money, the Bible teaches us that excessive attachment to material goods can divert the heart and distance a person from God's purposes. It is the love of money, not money itself, that becomes the root of many evils. Those who understand the role of wealth see money as leverage to do good, to bless others, and to serve God. Instead of living to accumulate, they focus on using their resources consciously and aligned with eternal values. The focus is on contributing to something greater, remaining free from the traps of greed and selfishness. When money is treated with wisdom and purpose, it ceases to be a burden and becomes a positive force. Avoiding the love of money also means finding contentment in what we have. This creates a freedom that allows an individual to live in peace without being dominated by ambition. For God's chosen, this freedom is essential to use money with purpose and responsibility. This perspective naturally leads to the next step, which is to plan and diversify resources as a way of caring for what has been entrusted. The Bible teaches us the value of being prepared for the future, both in spiritual and material aspects. For God's chosen, this preparation is not based on fear, but on prudence and wisdom. Financial planning is a way to show responsibility with the resources received, ensuring that needs will be met and that opportunities can be seized. Diversifying resources as well as investing in different areas is a way to protect what one has. The wisdom of diversification is illustrated in the verse from Ecclesiastes. Invest in 7 or even 8 ventures, for you do not know what disaster may come upon the land. This message clearly reminds us that relying on only one source is risky and that spreading investments brings security. Those who practice diversification are preparing for the unexpected, demonstrating faith in divine provision, but also responsibility in their choices. For God's chosen, diversifying is a way to use what they have efficiently and in a planned manner, preparing for what lies ahead. However, this preparation should not be limited to accumulating, but rather be a practice that allows blessing others and using resources wisely. This understanding leads us to value diligent work and dedication, which are fundamental to achieving genuine prosperity. The Bible teaches us that prosperity is the fruit of diligence and consistent work. For God's chosen, Personal effort is valued as part of a blessed life. Proverbs tells us that diligent hands bring wealth, emphasizing that prosperity is not a result of luck, but of dedication and perseverance. This principle leads us to understand that honest work, done with integrity, is a means of achieving a prosperous and fulfilling life. Diligence goes beyond mere action. It involves an attitude of commitment and zeal in what we do. When someone dedicates themselves seriously to their work, they attract opportunities and open doors. However, this dedication must always align with God's values, remembering that every task can be done as an act of worship. For God's chosen, this means putting their heart into everything they do, whether in work, family, or personal projects. Being diligent also implies resilience in difficult times. When facing challenges, a person who relies on faith finds the strength to persist and not give up. Enduring prosperity does not come overnight. It is the result of a journey of effort and a focused mindset. And it is this dedication that, later on, aligns with the importance of speaking words of faith and hope over what we seek to build. The Bible teaches that words have the power to create and transform, and this directly applies to prosperity. For God's chosen, the way we speak about our resources and our financial lives influences our reality. In Proverbs, we read that the power of life and death is in the tongue. Thus, the way we choose to speak about our finances can bless or limit what we have. The practice of affirming blessings and expressing gratitude is a way to align our words with divine promises. When we speak positively and in alignment with faith, we attract blessings and opportunities that might otherwise go unnoticed. Instead of saying, "I'll never have enough," God's chosen learn to declare, "God is my provider, and all my needs will be met." This change in language may seem simple, but it creates an atmosphere of optimism and confidence, bringing us closer to the blessings God desires to pour out. The power of words, therefore, is a tool that allows believers to shape their expectations and open doors to a new reality. This habit of positive affirmation, together with meditation on biblical promises, strengthens trust in God and keeps the heart open to new opportunities. With this, God's chosen position themselves to act wisely and seek divine guidance in every financial decision they make. For God's chosen, every financial decision should be made with discernment and wisdom, recognizing that He is the source of all guidance. The Bible encourages us to seek wisdom from God, especially in times of uncertainty and difficult choices. In James, we read, "If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, and He will give generously." This search for divine guidance helps us avoid impulsive mistakes and make wiser, safer choices. This practice involves more than just asking for help. It requires an attitude of dependence and humility. By praying and asking for direction, God's chosen demonstrate trust that He knows the best path, even when the answer isn't immediate. Whether it's deciding on an investment, a major purchase, or a new project, seeking God's guidance provides clarity and peace, as well as opening space for Him to direct our steps. God's wisdom is an invaluable resource that transforms our financial lives and protects us from risky decisions. By trusting Him in every aspect of our finances, God's chosen learn to live with responsibility and faith, knowing that each step taken under His guidance is a step toward true prosperity. And this journey, guided by God, strengthens faith, creating a cycle of trust that leads to growth and the fulfillment of His purposes. Now that you know these biblical principles of prosperity, ask yourself, how is your relationship with what God has entrusted to you? The Bible teaches us that every resource is an opportunity to live with purpose, to do good, and to impact the lives of those around us. If these teachings have touched you, perhaps it's time to rethink your decisions and align your life with these eternal values. Are you ready to apply these secrets and see the difference they can make? Remember, true prosperity begins in the heart, with attitudes and choices that reflect faith. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to keep learning more about living a purposeful life based on biblical teachings. And together, let's build a life where every resource is a multiplied blessing.